All right, back again in the little garage. Today I want to show you some things that it's a mistake that I see lots and lots of people who build their cars in this Model A hot rod world. Things that they do. I've been doing this a long time and had my hands in several of these builds, lots of these builds, built a lot of them by myself, several by myself actually. But I want to show you some things with some of the common problems that that we see when you're building a car, a Model A hot rod. This will be some things that you if you'll follow these deals here, it'll save you some problems actually. Of course, one modification, that every time that you modify something, there's always a drawback. There's always pros and cons to everything, because you're taking something that wasn't designed, to do what that we're doing with them and doing things like putting bigger motors in them and, and lots of modifications. That's what hot rodding's all about. But there's always drawbacks to every single thing you do. You got to suffer to look cool, to be cool, to be fast. There's things that just, cramming a big motor in a little bitty car. I mean, there's always something. But I'm going to show you some things that will maybe help you with some headaches later on. Okay, so I'm going to turn this camera around and I'm going to show you some things. Now, I bought this old car, already built. Like I said, this old car is an old hot rod, probably from the 30s. Started probably in the late 30s, more than likely. And it's been changed and modified probably all the way up until the 80s. And then it's been sitting somewhere for many years until I've got it. But I'm kind of getting rid of some of the old sins of its past, but I am keeping some of it because it's kind of what the car is, and I could tear this frame out of it and I could buy a new brick wheel frame or whoever makes one, or I could buy a real nice clean Model A frame or a 32 frame and I could set this body on it and start all over again, but it would kind of kill the soul of this car. I mean, it is what it is, and I kind of want to leave some of it, So anyway, I'm going to show you some things that people do that, and why they do it. I know why they do it, but I'm going to show you some things here that if you'll follow some of this stuff, it'll save you some headaches. Okay, I'm going to turn this around. All right, I've got a little Model A Roadster here. It's 30 model. It don't matter what year model. I've built all the Model A's. Okay, right here, the first thing people do. Of course, this is small block Chevy. This is the most common thing to put in them. About any kind of motor, I put Cadillacs, small blocks, big blocks. We've put about everything. Hemis, we put about everything in these things. But the first thing people do is they mount their engine too low. And the reason they do it is because they're trying to get the engine, the transmission under the floor, so they'll have more foot room inside the car in here, so they don't have a transmission tunnel. Now, this car is channeled a lot. You can see down here how much it is channeled. It's channeled this much. I mean, a lot right there. I mean, quite a bit. And they still got a transmission tunnel in it. So I can understand why they mounted this thing so low, but they still cause themselves a problem, and they still have a transmission hump in it. So they already got a transmission hump in the car, so they might as well have just went on up a little higher and fixed the problem. But I can understand that the transmission hump would get a little bit bigger, but I don't think it would make any difference. What they do is they mount them so low, And I see V8s in Model A's all the time with the engine down so low that the transmission goes under the car and there's no transmission hump in here, just flat like the original. Yes, there's a lot more foot room in there. They're a lot more comfortable, but it's a bad deal actually. What the first thing is oil pan. The oil pan gets so close to the ground, especially if you're running a dropped axles. If you're running dropped axles and you're Z'd in the back, you know, this thing's probably Z'd 12, 14 inches in the rear of it, along with being channeled. And I always Z my cars. You can see where they Z'd it. I mean, the frame is right here, you know, in the back, you know, and then of course it drops down right behind the seat there. But so this car sits really, really low to the ground when it's running down the road. That's the way it was built back in its day, you know. And of course it has homemade frame in it, but it don't matter if it's Model A frame, 32 frame, whatever. I mean, they all wind up looking like this if they're Z'd in the back and got dropped axles on them and stuff. But what the problem is with that sitting down so low, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to drag your oil pan on every crooked driveway you run across. Speed bumps. You can drive these cars low to the ground without dragging your oil pans. And another thing that happens on a Chevrolet, if you look, you'll see the oil pan plug right there. It kind of points down at an angle. And what happens if you run over a bad place in some concrete in a driveway or something, it will literally turn that plug and screw your oil pan plug right out. Had it happen. Another thing is you're dragging your oil pan all the time. After a while, the bottom of your oil pan's all beat all up, and after a while, they start leaking oil. Same way it could happen with your transmission pan too. You need to raise these motors up. You need to build this mount right here, pointing up. To get that pan off, it's going to put your motor up higher. It's going to make your transmission. You can have a transmission hump in the car. And on this channel car, it just had to been about 3 inches higher, 4 inches higher, and it would have solved a bunch of problems with this car. The next thing is that's very important on these type of builds is when they're down so low, it puts the fan up here on the radiator way down on the radiator. You can see, you can see how we got all this area of the radiator up here. No fan. It's way down here. The fan blades actually go past the fins and they go down here where there's that fan. I mean, we're looking at over half of that blade right there. That's not even cooling nothing. You know, it's not even in the fin area. And heat goes up. So this is the hot part of the radiator. This is the cold part of the radiator. So you got this fan down here cooling the cold part of the radiator. So you start running into cars that start overheating. You start seeing these cars around there, they overheat all the time. And the reason is because they got their motor down so low that the fan ain't doing no good. It's already cooling the cool part of the radiator. That fan should be up here and cooling the hot part of the radiator. So if this engine was raised up 4 inches, you would be cooling this part of the radiator that is hot. So the first thing that you've done by raising this motor, the first problem you've solved is not dragging your oil pan. Second problem you've solved just by raising the motor is now your car is probably not going to overheat because you got your fan up here. Next thing is, if you run an automatic transmission, your little transmission coolant lines that go in the bottom of your radiator right here, if this fan is so low and it's really close to a fan like that, it should be. Now I'm going to put a spacer on this one and move it up a little bit. But the next thing is your transmission lines coming out of here, your fan blades hit them, especially over there on the passenger side. On this passenger side, if you'll look right down there, where my finger is right there, that fan blade right there, if that line's coming out of there anywhere, that fan's going to hit that, especially if that's really, really close like it should be. Okay, having that motor up brings that fan up here out of the way of those transmission lines. Third problem you've solved. The next problem you solve is in a car, especially in a car that's not channeled. you're with your engine sitting way down in here. You got all this empty room in here. This big old cavity in here ain't got a thing in it, and it makes aesthetically, it don't look good. The engine way down in it, got a big old huge hole up here, nothing in it. I like the engine cavity to be all filled up. That makes your car look better. It makes your engine look bigger. It makes your engine more of a focal point on the car. Raise that motor up, fill up your engine bay. It makes your car look better. It'll make your fan up in the hot part of the radiator, keep you from overheating. It keeps your fan out of your automatic transmission coolant lines. It keeps your oil pan from dragging the ground. You will have a transmission hump in it. You say, well, I'm a great old big guy, and well, if you're a great old big guy and you can't drive a car with a hump in it, you need to get another car. It just ain't for you. If you don't fit, you just don't fit. Get a 34 or a 33 or sometimes a 32. Those cars are a lot bigger than Model A's. They're more wider inside. Shoot, go up to 36 or 35. They had roadsters in them too if you want a roadster or a coupe or whatever. They're a lot bigger inside. Model A's are not big inside. So if you're a great big guy, and you're going to drive one of these things and you're wanting to be comfortable, these cars are not for you. I'm telling you. I'm 5'9", weigh 220 pounds, and it's about all that I want, to be honest with you. When I was a younger guy, I weighed a lot less. Now, what I've done, and these cars wasn't a problem for me, and they're still not. But the next thing is that people they don't want to cut their firewalls. Small block Chevys, that firewall should be cut back 3 inches. Big block Chevys, 5 inches. And you scoop that engine back into that cavity back in there, and raise it, and that also gives you more clearance on your transmission lines. It does several things. It actually moves the weight off the front axle, quite a bit of weight, which makes the car drive easier. A car that's scooted forward like this right here without a cut firewall, they always feel a little heavy in the front. You'd make drive and say, it feels pretty good, but if you jump in one that the engine's back about 3 inches, you'll notice a difference. It feels lighter to the touch. It's easier to drive. It handles better. Another thing is distributor clearance on Chevrolets. Look how close that is. When you rev this motor on this thing, engine flickers a little bit, and it actually moves this distributor, and it makes the timing too fast. Every now and then you have to come out and reset the timing on it. The timing gets too fast. Yeah, look at all these mess of wires and stuff. Yeah, I know it's all mess. It's the way it was when I got it. All this mess. I'm going to clean all that up. This car is being totally rewired and everything. So don't be hating on me on all that stuff. Like I said, I bought this old car and it was a mess when I bought it. And I would like to cut that firewall and scoop that motor back. And I may do it someday. But right now I'm not going to. I'm just going to drive it like that. And if you've got an old car that's like this and you don't want to cut that firewall and you don't want to pick it up and stuff, you can take the fan off and put an electric fan on them right here, But if you're building a traditional car or you don't want an electric fan on it or something, that's the way you build them. Another thing is when you're building one, if you'll raise that motor up to where I told you at and cut that firewall, scoop that motor back, get that fan up higher, that'll save you all kind of problems. You won't have to run an electric fan. You don't have to buy one. That'd be another expense you can use on something else. But anyway, that's my 2 cents for the day. I thought you guys might be interested in an old man's knowledge on something like this. Yeah, you may disagree with me on something, but I don't care. I'm an old man. I don't give a rip. What I told you, let me tell you, it works. We'll catch you later. This is Burnt Garage Speed Shop.